Well, to our Facebook and YouTube community, we say good afternoon and welcome to our first ever Black Candidates Virtual Forum. This forum has been put together and brought to you by a host of reputable grassroots civic organizations in Anne Arundel County. They are the United Black Clergy of Anne Arundel County, the Anne Arundel County branch of the NAACP, the Caucus of African American Leaders, Connecting the Dots, Community Actively Seeking Transparency, and the Annapolis Alumni Chapter of the Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. I am your forum moderator, Bishop Antonio Palmer, Senior Pastor of the Kingdom Celebration Center in Odenton, and First Vice President of the United Black Clergy of Anne Arundel County. Again, we welcome our Facebook Live audience and also our YouTube community. I am accompanied today by a host of powerful civic leaders and activists in Anne Arundel County. Please allow me the privilege of introducing to you. We have the president of the Annapolis Alumni Chapter of the Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, Miss Naz Afi. She's also accompanied by the second vice president, Tambla Baez, also Joanne Scipio, and Linda Boyd. We also have today the president of Connecting the Dots, Miss Monica Lindsay. Today we also have the president and founder of Community Actively Seeking Transparency, the Reverend Marguerite Morris. She'll be joining us a little bit later. Today we also have with us Miss D. Goodwin. Miss D is with us today, and the political action chair of the NAACP Anne Arundel County branch, Mr. Steve Waddy, is with us. Also the president of the United Black Clergy of Anne Arundel County, Apostle Larry Lee Thomas Sr., and he is accompanied by the second vice president of the United Black Clergy, Pastor John D. Watts. And finally, we have with us the convener of the Caucus of African American Leaders, the godfather of activism, Mr. Carl Snowden. We say welcome and thank you all for joining us for this wonderful event, our first ever Black Candidates Virtual Forum here in Anne Arundel County. Before I introduce our candidates, Mr. Carl Snowden has a very important announcement to share with the community. Mr. Snowden, you have the floor. I have to take you off mute.
Thank you. First, thanks to Bishop Palmer and the United Black Clergy for putting this on. Thanks to the NAACP. Thanks to all the sponsoring organizations who helped to put this together. What we know is voting is the most important thing that we can do. And there's something I want all of the people watching tonight, but particularly those who are in Anne Arundel County, or anywhere in the state of Maryland for that matter, if you received a ballot in the mail, that ballot is not a sample ballot, it is the actual ballot. Please, please do not throw it away. Fill it out and mail it in. If you've not already mailed in your ballot, today you will have an opportunity to hear from candidates who are on that ballot who are running. It's important that people know who the candidates are and that they express through voting their voices. The last thing I want to be able to share with the community as a whole, this particular upcoming election, the primary on June 2nd, of this year will give us an opportunity to make history. African Americans will, for the first time, be able to elect, for the first time, an African American woman to the Anne Arundel County Circuit Court. We'll have an opportunity in November to also be able to make history. Every sign is that African Americans will be playing a vital role, including maybe even being part of the presidential ticket. It's going to be important for us to participate and to be involved. Now, lastly, when you got your ballot, you discovered on the ballot the following offices: school board, people who are running for Democratic National Convention, and other positions. And you may be wondering, who should I vote for? If after this forum you don't know who to vote for, please feel free to contact us, and we'll be happy to give you some suggestions. Thank you, Bishop.
All right. Thank you, Carl. We appreciate that vital information that you just shared with us. Now, I would like to introduce to you Anne Arundel County's Black candidates. Today we have with us, and I'm going to do this in alphabetical order. Today we have the Honorable Judge Elizabeth Morris. She's with us today. There she goes, waving her hand there. Also, we have Mr. Delegate Mike Rogers is with us today. There we go. We also have with us Mr. Keanu Smith Brown. And we have Mr. Devon Tucker. All right. And we also have with us Mr. Raleigh Turnage. All right, there he is. How you doing, sir? All right. And we have Miss Dejah Williams. Hi, Miss Dejah. Okay. Also, because of prior scheduled commitments, Congressman Anthony Brown could not make it be with us today. We also would like to acknowledge Sheila Bryant, who is running for Congress District 4, Congressional District 4. Okay. So the purpose of this forum is to introduce the candidates to the community, to give them the opportunity to become more familiar with the candidates, and so that perhaps we all can make a more informative voting decision. So, candidates, at this particular time, we're going to have a healthy discussion. We'd like to give you 2 minutes each to give us an opening statement, sharing with us what you are currently doing, what position you're running for, and a brief description of your agenda. So again, I'm going to do this in alphabetical order. So first we have the Honorable Judge, the lovely Elizabeth Morris. Let me take you off mute. There we go.
Well, thank you. What I was saying is thank you so much, Bishop. It's such a pleasure to be here. I really appreciate the opportunity from all the organizations to give me an opportunity to introduce myself to the community. As it's been stated, I am a judge on the Circuit Court for Anne Arundel County. I was appointed by Governor Hogan in 2018. The way that it works is that once you go through a vetting process, you are selected by the governor. So there's 4 of us, Judge Albin, Judge Thompson, Judge Trunnell, and myself. We went through a vetting process, and I can answer any questions about that. Then we were appointed as judges. And then the Maryland Constitution requires sitting judges who have been appointed through the vetting process to run for the very next election. So for us, that would be the 2020 election, which is why we appear on your ballot. And then once that process is concluded, the judges would be in that position for 15 years. As a judge, I absolutely love my job. It's been the great privilege of my life to be appointed in that position. I love the fact that I have a direct impact in the citizens' lives. And I take my job very, very seriously and humbly, understanding that my words and my decisions make an impact in people's lives in a very real way. So as far as an agenda, because I'm a judge, I am ethically precluded from having an agenda. The whole point of the judicial system is for us to be impartial and fair. So as a candidate, my agenda is actually just educating the voters about the selection process, why we appear on the ballot, and why, unlike some people who are opposing us, who are not judges, they don't have the same ethical restrictions as we as judges do. So that's my introduction. Thank you.
Thank you. Well spoken. We really appreciate that. Very informative, too. Next, we have Delegate Mike Rogers. Let me take him off mute. All right, sir, you're on.
Well, good afternoon, United Black Clergy, NAACP, Caucus of African American Leaders, Connecting Dots, CAS, and it's an honor to be here. And I think that at one point or another, I've had a chance to work with each of the various organizations represented, and I just want to thank you for your advocacy and thank you for giving me the opportunity to come before you and tell you a little bit about my background and a little bit about how I see the opportunity to serve as a delegate to the Democratic National Convention. So some of you may know most of my career has been spent in the military, 29 years plus in the Army and Marine Corps, serving on 4 different continents, 32 different countries. And I think that has given me a unique perspective, having started in, growing up in an underserved community, to view things through the lens which I do. So with respect to the opportunity to serve as a delegate, for me, I saw it as more of an organizing opportunity, a chance to bring people together, to get people to get out and really understand what the convention and what the platform was about. Obviously, COVID-19 has precluded me from, getting together 50, 60, 70 volunteers and going out door to door and kind of having that kind of impact in terms of spreading the gospel, if you will, with respect to the Democratic platform. Having said that, I think the opportunity to go and represent in Milwaukee, if we do end up, in fact, going to Milwaukee, is an opportunity to take some of the things that I've learned here in Maryland forward and to advocate for certain issues regarding healthcare, regarding criminal justice reform, regarding education, and also bring back from those who are at the convention those lessons learned, best practices, things that I might be able to legislatively make a difference with here in Maryland. So with that, I ask you for your support for delegate to the National Convention. And if you like what I've done and believe in my candidacy, I would ask you, as you see things on Facebook and other mediums, share it. Help put it out there, because really that this is going to be a social media based kind of election, because it's a mail-in election, and so there won't be the door-to-door ground game that you would typically see because of COVID-19, but there are other ways to share that message. So again, thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, sir. We appreciate all the work that you're doing in Anne Arundel County. We see, I always tease you and say, I see you everywhere. You're almost omnipresent. Next, we're going to have Mr. Keanu Smith-Brown. And there we go. There we go. Unmuting you.
Yes, thank you, Bishop, and thank you to everyone else for inviting me here today. I think this is an opportunity to speak to everybody and introduce myself to those who do not know me. And I do look forward to working with you all moving forward. But my name is Keanu. I am a resident of Annapolis. Of course, I am on the ballot for a delegate to the Democratic National Convention for Bernie Sanders in District 3. I am a graduate from the University of Baltimore. I was raised, though, in Annapolis in Calvert County, and I've always had an interest in politics since I was a child. I would oftentimes recollect, I'm going to do this, my best to do this in about a couple of minutes, but I recollect when in elementary school they asked what you want to be, and we were all gathered in a circle, and I said president, not knowing the intensities of that job. And the older I got, I realized what it meant to be a president, or what it meant to be in leadership, what it meant to be in government, what it meant to work in politics. And it requires a strong person, a person with courage. It requires a person who's willing to stand for the people and not back down. And I am confident that I'm willing to take on that role and task. And I am very thrilled to be able to do such a thing, especially on behalf of the constituents of Annapolis and District 30 and District 3. Now, for those who don't know really what it means to be a delegate to the convention, in 2016, I had the honor and privilege as well to go to the convention on behalf of Bernie Sanders and the District of 3. I was young, but it was an awesome opportunity, and it's one that I will never forget. And when you go there, what you do is you represent those who voted you in there. I am going to vote on my first ballot for Bernie Sanders, as the people who elect me to go to the convention would like for me to do and ask me to do. And that's what they're trusting me to do. And so that's what I'm going to do. Graduating from the University of Baltimore, and being involved in student government since community college, I also understand that the people's voices matters most. You should not take on just your own personal gain. That should not be at the forefront. It's always about everyone's gain. And I think what we need the most, especially in this time, is someone who's willing and able to take that responsibility on. And I oftentimes think about what I've gone through, being raised by a single mother, being raised in Eastport Terrace, Admiral Fergus, having to travel back and forth to Calvert County and Annapolis my entire life. But I think what I will never forget, and what I think is a part that I will oftentimes think about, is that it's the strength of those around you, and it's the strength that you can find within yourself that will lift you up and bring you out of all types of trials, tribulation, your faith in God or whatever faith you have to keep you going. And I want you to understand, everyone who looks at my name on the ballot, you can vote for me. You don't have to vote for Bernie, although I encourage you to. But when you see my name, you can vote for me. You can vote for any of the other delegates that you vote for. But always remember that I will stand by you. I will support the things that you are trusting me to support. And so thank you again, Bishop, and everyone else who had me on this call.
Excellent, sir. We appreciate what you're doing, and that was good information that we just received from you. Next, we're going to have Mr. Devon Tucker. Give me 1 second here. Let me move my mouse. There we go.
All right. Good afternoon, everybody. Good to see everybody. Good to have this forum. Very great idea. This is one of the things that really got me involved in community activism and politics, this kind of organizing. In the age of COVID-19, obviously, it has taken on a different kind of form in terms of webinars and phone conferences and such. But fundamentally, this is very important work for all the reasons that we know about and all the reasons that are to come. So a little bit about myself. I live here in Laurel, Maryland, in West Anne Arundel County, in a rustic neighborhood where I've been active, very active in my homeowners association, but also community large events as it relates to especially our schools. Most recently, organized a symposium back in the fall to discuss matters as it relates to both Meade and North County High. And really been a voice for this part of the county to bring attention to a number of issues that really haven't been on the radar for our community in terms of the leadership in our county. I'm running as a delegate for Elizabeth Warren. And as Keanu mentioned, one of the roles of a delegate is to really bring the issues and concerns that you care about to the Democratic National Convention. For me, those issues are really about criminal justice reform. It's about education. It is about the digital divide. We're seeing that play out in real time now with COVID-19, with substantial gaps in coverage for a number of kids here in our own school district here in Anne Arundel County. And that is an issue that is particularly close to me because I've worked for the past 15 years or so as a nonprofit executive on closing the digital divide in low-income communities. As a delegate, you bring those issues to the convention. You fight for a platform, an agenda that you push candidates to support, publicly support. So if it's supporting homeowners during COVID-19 and expanding options for forbearance, if it's for making sure that people are not evicted during COVID-19, those are all the issues that the delegates will be discussing here in the next couple of months. As Delegate Rogers mentioned, we don't yet know if this is going to be a virtual convention or a personal convention. So with that said, I've been very active on all of these issues here in West County. And I think Elizabeth Warren is really best positioned to articulate a new way forward for our country. I think she is a lady who who fully understands the needs of our communities, have actual battle plans or plans to address those issues. Again, everything from criminal justice reform to education to jobs to economic development.
Thank you, Devin. I appreciate that. You know, I'm trying to stay on task.
No problem.
And I appreciate the work that you've done with that symposium. Was awesome. Much credit to you there on the symposium. Next, we're going to have Mr. Raleigh Turnage. There we go. All right. I'm glad you raised your hand. I couldn't find you there, Raleigh. All right, Mr. Turnage, there you go.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Raleigh Turnage. I live in Severn. I've been in Anne Arundel County since 1975. I'm from Baltimore City, born and raised. Grew up in an impoverished neighborhood in Cherry Hill, South Baltimore. Went to Baltimore City Public Schools. Also attended the University of Baltimore, DeWine. And went to Coppin State to earn my master's degree in special education. Became a teacher in 1992 in Baltimore City Public Schools. An assistant principal in 98. Assistant principal in 3 or 4 different schools on all levels, elementary, middle, and high school. Served as a principal in Baltimore City Public Schools, then went with the State of Maryland's Department of Juvenile Services, with the Maryland State Department of Education Juvenile Services Division, and served as principal at the Hickey School from 2005 till 2012. Retired in 2012. And since that time, I've had the opportunity to serve as a principal of a program for a middle high school program out of Annapolis High School. I have 2 students or 2 grandchildren currently in Anne Arundel County Public Schools, one at Rippling Woods and the other at Old Mill. I have 3 children who also graduated from Anne Arundel County Public Schools. And so you can see there I have a vested interest. I have served as first vice president of Anne Arundel County's branch of the NAACP for 2.5 to 3 years under Jackie Alsop. During that time, I've had the opportunity to attend meetings with the school board president, as well as the fire chief, the police commissioner, and the county executive on a monthly basis, along with Carl Stokes and other members of the organization. So I have a vested interest in education, primarily because of the things that I've been noticing lately that have really raised my eyebrows a lot about the behaviors of students, the racial tensions, the disparate treatment between African-American students, white students, and the like. So I'm here. I'm ready to go. I don't take any wood nickels. I won't take sides. I don't have a political agenda at this point. I will serve to the best of my ability, and that's all I can say.
Thank you, Mr. Turnage. We really appreciate that. And you're running for, let everybody know what you're running for.
District 2, Board of Education.
There you go, District 2, Board of Education. Well, that's our 6 candidates that we just introduced to you, alongside with Congressman Anthony Brown and also Sheila Bryan, who's also running for Congressional District 4. At this particular time, we're going to have our...
Miss Williams.
Excuse me?
Forgot Miss Williams.
Oh, I'm sorry, Ms. Williams. Oh, I do apologize. We do have Miss Dejah Williams. Let me unmute her real quick here, and there we go. We take it over, Ms. Williams.
Hello,
I do apologize,
everyone. My name is Deja Williams, and I am running for District 2 Delegate for Senator Elizabeth Warren. Thank you, Bishop, and all the associating organizations for inviting me here today. Just as my colleagues, Keanu and Devon said, I would be, except for Bernie Sanders, I would be supporting Senator Elizabeth Warren. I definitely think that she is someone who does stand for economic prosperity through all socioeconomic backgrounds, definitely recognizes the power and the privilege that the Black vote provides the Democratic Party. I think that is something that is often taken for granted by Democrats, and that was one of the things that attracted me to her platform, that she recognized that for years and for decades, decade in and decade out, that the Black vote has helped the Democratic Party prosper in America, and was someone who wanted to make sure that we as a people were taken care of, not only as voters, but on an economic front. Housing, a lot of people who live in public housing are suffering from housing that is going bad, and wanted to take care of that with HUD. And so those two things, economic and public housing, making sure that us Black and brown people who do the Black dollar goes further in America, those of us who are in public housing, that we have housing that is livable, that is clean, because housing is not a right, but it is not a privilege, but a right. And so just those two things definitely are really big for me when it comes to Blacks in America. And those were one of the two big plans: education, equality for equitable and equal education, were those three big platforms that I thought that attracted me to Elizabeth Warren, things that I would bring to the table if you elected me. I am in District 2, so if your congressperson is Dutch Ruthersberger, then I am in your district, and I look forward to hearing the questions that you have for me. Thank you.
Awesome, Dejah. I'm glad you that Carl didn't let me forget you. That was good information that we needed. Thank you so much.
Gotta unmute yourself.
Yeah, thank you so much. There's a lot of muting going on here. Thank you so much, Dejah. Again, what I was saying was I was thanking God that Carl had reminded me about you, because you gave me some good information there. We really appreciate that. And I guess right now I can say that we just introduced our candidates here, our Black candidates who are in Anne Arundel County, alongside with Congressman Anthony Brown and also Sheila Bryan, who's running for Congressional District 4. At this particular time, now that we've have our opening statements from our candidates, we're going to have each organization who's in representation today, that they're going to ask the candidates various questions. And so we're gonna go in a particular order. And let me say this: everyone's doing a great job, and we're moving right along and right on schedule. And so we really appreciate this particular forum. And so at this time, I'm going to have, as we're going to go in a particular order, we're going to have, first up, we're going to have the president of the Annapolis Alumni Chapter of the Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. Praise God, Ms. Nas Afi, and she's going to offer up her first question for everyone. Ms. Nas.
Thank you, Bishop. This question is for Mr. Turnage. How will you use your voice to make a difference in how the racial events that have occurred in our schools are addressed?
Am I unmuted?
Yes.
Muted now?
Yes.
Okay, great.
I'm in rhythm now,
all right,
Brother Turnage.
Okay. All right. Well, like I said, I've been in education now since 1992, and I've survived quite a bit of tensions in various schools that I've served in. When I was at Southern High School, for example, we had a lot of racial tension there because of students coming from South Baltimore as well as Southeast Baltimore, Southwest Baltimore, all to Southern High School, and they were African Americans as well as Latinos, whites, and the like. And oftentimes we had racial tensions in those particular situations, and we had to deal with them. And on the county, public schools of late have had different issues that really concern me about the hanging of nooses and things of that type in school, racial epithets, all kinds of things that are happening. And one of the things that I would do to address it is to have community town hall meetings to actually bring this out with the school board and the parents to get this thing out in the open so people can have a lively discussion about what's going on and what needs to be done to solve it. Some of the things that I would actually do to solve them would be to, like I said, have these conferences, town hall type conferences, as well as one-on-one conferences with the participants. If there are individuals that are named and involved in a particular situation, then we need to bring them forward, sit them down, have a conversation with them. In certain cases, there may be some counseling required, not only of the student, but the parents of those students. Because oftentimes the behaviors of the students are reflected from the parents, or coming from the parents themselves, about their own personal positions and how they feel about certain people and certain communities and that sort of thing. Third, I would definitely work with the school board to bring all of these things to the forefront so that people are keenly aware of what's going on, and not to let it rest until we actually bring some, get some decisions out there that are going to address these problems. These are serious problems that when they happen, they're very serious. It just makes me go back to slavery time and make me understand that people still have these same hatred types of issues even today as opposed to then. So there would be a myriad of factors and things that need to be put into place in order to make this happen. Is my time up?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. I thought I heard a beat. But let me just say this in closing to that question. It's a serious problem. It takes serious people to have solved those problems. I'm one of those people, and I would not let this particular go to rest, put aside. Come back to at a later date.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, sir. We really appreciate that. Next, we're going to have Ms. Monica Lindsay. And I just unmuted you, Ms. Lindsay. And she's from the president of the Connecting the Dots.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for this opportunity. So my question is going to go to the Honorable Elizabeth Morris, Judge, Circuit Court. I would like to know more about the vetting process that judges had to go through, and specifically what your experience in that vetting process was.
Thank you for that question. So the vetting process is designed to look at an applicant completely as a person and as a professional. So what happens is that once there's a judicial vacancy, we as applicants fill out a 30-page application that goes into every aspect of your life. It goes to your community service, what you've done as a professional, who you are as a person. Then that application is forwarded to 17 different bar associations that are what we call local and specialty bar associations. So the Maryland State Bar Association, there are 2 African American Bar Association, the Alliance of Black Women, the Monumental Bar Association also reviews that. We have Hispanic and Latino Bar Association, every type of bar association that you can think of. Excuse me. After they review the application, they'll conduct their own investigation. Then they'll invite the applicants in for an interview. The interview questions are based on that particular bar association. Some of them are legal. Some of them are designed to make sure that you are able to have, because it's a position where you're dealing with members of the public from different backgrounds, different socioeconomic backgrounds, different racial backgrounds, to be aware of that you're serving in that capacity. So some of those questions are designed to get to that as well. After you go and have those questions asked of you, the committee will then make a recommendation, either that you're highly qualified, not qualified, qualified or not qualified at this time. And then they will forward that recommendation to the Judicial Nominating Commission, who are 13 members. Most of them are attorneys. Some people are non-attorneys, who will then start the whole vetting process again. One of the Judicial Nominating Commissioners will get your application. They'll do a complete vetting, call not only the people that you have listed, but they'll call your opposing counsel to see how you treated, when you're in the battle of litigation, whether or not you were able to maintain civility. They will call everybody, and it's not even local to Anne Arundel County. I know for me, they call people throughout the state because I practiced throughout the state when I was at the Attorney General's office. After you go through that, you're in front of the Judicial Nominating Commission. They'll have a 20-minute interview for every applicant, and where that process is designed to not to have you brag about your strengths, but basically having you confront your weaknesses and how you would be able to overcome them on the bench. After you've gone through that interview process, they'll make a decision about weeding down the number of applicants and forward names to the governor, which is called a short list. And then the governor will then conduct his own investigation separately of you about your background. And then you have an interview with the governor of those who are on the short list. And then the governor will make a decision as far as who to appoint.
Thank you, Judge Morris. That was a lot of information.
It's a long process.
Yeah, that's a long process. I wouldn't have known any of that, at all. We appreciate that question, Monica, as well. That was great. Next, we're going to have the president and founder of Community Actively Seeking Transparency, the Reverend Marguerite Morris, is going to ask her question.
Good afternoon, and I want to say that first of all, you all are amazing. We really appreciate the service that you're providing to all of us as a community. Bishop, I have two questions. I'll ask one now and one later.
Right, one now and then one later, yes.
Okay, gotcha. My question is for Delegate Rogers or Mr. Tucker, or if our revolution wants to chime in. My question is as such. Several citizens feel that there's a need for civilian review boards in Anne Arundel County. Could you explain what you think that is and what you will do to support that effort? Thank you.
We'll go with
whichever one of those would like to take the question.
I got Delegate Rogers unmuted there.
Tucker, I'll let him go and then I'll chime in.
Okay.
Well, specifically to your question, Delegate Rogers is a state legislator, so he's going to have more influence over this process, I think, than I would as a civilian. But as a delegate to the Democratic National Convention, I think that's one of the things that's going to be a part of the discussion in terms of the platform, part of comprehensive. Slow roll what a civilian review board might look like. I think a number of jurisdictions are still in the process of doing that. I think in theory, for me, it sounds like a very good and practical idea. I don't know. I just haven't seen any evidence where it's been kind of most effective or where it's really worked in a way that some might view as impartial or objective and free of politics. But I'm intrigued by the idea. I'm happy to kind of talk more locally about it. But I think more importantly, in my role as a delegate for Elizabeth Warren to the National Convention, it is my duty, I think, to kind of take those kinds of questions, your concerns, to the Democratic National Convention and raise it as part of the party's platform to focus more energy and policy discussions around that particular issue.
Thank you, sir. And
so,
Delegate Rogers.
From a Democratic National Convention standpoint, certainly I think that's a piece of a larger platform surrounding social justice and what that looks like with respect to crime legislation and the impacts that can have. But I know you're probably more focused locally, and so what I would say to you, and I know we've had this conversation, Reverend Marguerite, but for the other folks there, I think there has to be a conversation between CAST as well as the enforcement, public safety folks. And as we have that dialogue, we have to determine, what can we do, moving forward. My understanding is that they have something in place in Baltimore City. I can't speak to how effective that has been or hasn't been, but I certainly think we could take, that jurisdiction as an example and potentially look at, what's going right up there and what's going wrong, and use that as a template to further discussions here in Anne Arundel County.
Thank you, Delegate Rogers.
Thank you.
Next, we're going to have the Political Action Chair of the NAACP Anne Arundel County Branch, Mr. Steve Waddy. I'm trying to take you off mute here, Steve.
You got it.
Oh, okay, there we go.
Okay. All right. Well, I just want to say that NAACP has existed.
Steve, we're going to ask if you can speak a little bit louder or turn your volume up. We can barely hear you.
Is that better?
That's a whole lot better.
Okay. I just wanted to say the NAACP has existed in all sorts of pandemic situations, from typhoid to even the AIDS pandemic that's ravaged our community over this past several decades, and we definitely want to continue working on behalf of African Americans and making sure that we're all safe and protected. Judge Morris, in that vein, I was wondering, we've seen confined prisoners and confined and individuals being let out in fear of them being contracting the coronavirus. So, what are your views on diversion programs in the county and how they can be implemented?
Well, it sounds like there's actually two questions in one. So I'm going to take the COVID one first. As a judiciary, the head of the courts is Chief Judge Barbera, and she issued an administrative order that deals with the pretrial detention of individuals as it relates to COVID. And there's a number of factors that we as judges, when we're doing bail reviews, that we consider when there's concerns about COVID, that we consider, and we make decisions based on the individual facts and circumstances of a particular case before us. So as a judiciary, our leadership has already dealt with this issue by giving us guidance on how to deal with these issues during the pandemic. Now, the second question, the second issue was, ask the second one again. Ask your question just one more time.
Diversion programs so that we don't see people being locked up in prison and jail.
Right. Okay. Yes, thank you for the reminder. So the second is that as a court, Anne Arundel County Circuit Court, we have two ways as our courts for diversion programs. The first is our drug treatment court. And there are drug treatment court judges who are assigned that particular docket, and I'm not one of them. We have Judge Albin, who I'm running with, is on that particular docket. But generally speaking, I can tell you that we have it started off as people who were violating probation as an opportunity to get assessed, to make a determination if they would be amenable to treatment, if the drug court program would be appropriate for them. So as a court, we have made the determination that this is something that is helpful. The purpose of the program is to treat the whole person. It is a situation where you're not just working with the judiciary, you're working with social workers, you're working with drug treatment programs. These are all designed to address the entire person. Even in the drug court program, you're dealing with employment, housing issues, all of that make the person be as successful as possible. So that is a very specific docket that are handled by judges in that docket. Now, all 13 of us, there's 13 judges on the circuit court for Anne Arundel County who handle the criminal docket in a more broad sense rather than just the drug court. There are other opportunities to assess an individual's amenability to treatment. There's a statute through that's 8505 and 8507, which makes an evaluation if there's a concern about an individual's drug addiction. There's an ability for me as a judge to send that person out for a screening. So there can be a recommendation back to the court about whether or not that person is amenable for treatment. So that's the other way that we as our circuit court, have diversion programs. Statewide, also the judiciary has different programs, whether it's mental health courts or veterans court, but those are jurisdiction specific. But specifically in Anne Arundel County, those are the two major ways for diversion.
Thank you.
Thank you, Judge Morris, for that answer there. Next, we're going to have from the United Black Clergy of Anne Arundel County, we're going to have the second vice president, Pastor John D. Watts, is going to ask his question.
Okay, and consider I know we pressing for time. It seems like I'm always the one that has to speak questions in, but we thank all of you all for being here today. My question is, and I definitely support all of you all, but considering all of the black candidates that preceded you in the past years, what make you different from those who were black and have failed us as a community? So anybody, if one of you all can answer that question for me.
Since we haven't heard from Keanu, we're going to ask Keanu, and if he can answer that particular question there. How about that?
Thank you. I know it's a few of us who haven't really spoken too much, but great question. So as a delegate to the convention, I think that some people may not really understand the role of a delegate when they go to the convention. When you look at our names on the ballot and you select the amount that they allow you to select, you also select your presidential candidate. When the votes are tallied, and each candidate's given their proportionate amount of delegates, and those delegates go to convention. We as DNC pledge delegates are those who will cast our ballot in the first round, and then, if necessary, in the second round for the candidate of our choosing. The second and the first one, the one that we were decided by on the ballot. Although I heard some conversation about helping to change the platform or helping to form the platform. And the thing about the platform is there are committees that the Democratic National Party has set up for the convention to be able to really structure how it's going to go at the convention. And how do we have a say, or how do we as a black candidate or us as black people have a say when it comes to that? You'll vote for the delegates who are representing the candidate that you support. And a candidate like Bernie Sanders, when we talk about his platform and just focusing on people of color and how do we advance as people of color, we talk about Medicare for all. It's important for us to pass the Medicare for All program. And there's many reasons why me, and I don't often talk about this, but me as a cancer survivor understands how important the state's insurance program was to me. And this is affordable. This is free to me. No charge until I turn a certain age. Of course, I had to pay that $1 copay when I get medications. But that is something that we have to enforce in our government, because if you look at the pregnancy deaths or the rate of pregnancy deaths amongst women of color, they're much higher usually than all other races. And so that right there is important enough. If you talk about something like having equal treatment in the criminal justice system, yes, I fully support you, Miss Elizabeth Morris, in the judicial system, in the criminal justice system. We have to have equality all around. Not only just equity, but equality all around. And when you're talking about people of color not treated at the same level as those who are not of color, being charged for higher time in prison than if I was a white person and had a little baggie of marijuana on my side, and I was charged and I would go to prison for a longer period of time, that is a shame. It's not appropriate, it's not right, and we need to change that. And so that's just one example, whether it's marijuana legalization or holding everyone at the same standard. Then you talk about something such as a fair wage and housing. Dejah alluded to this a little earlier today. We do need someone who's going to be able to change the entire housing system. Why? Because you're finding people here, even in Annapolis, who are suffering with asthma. People who are here in Annapolis who are suffering in their homes with mold, and there's no solution to that. And what does that do? That causes health problems. So this is definitely a slippery slope, and we have to address every single issue. But to your question, I think it's a disappointment when you find people of color who get elected on the platform to support Black people, and they don't do a dang thing when they get elected. And we do have to figure out how to solve that. And you find people who have integrity. You find people who are not going to bend on their knees to those who are in power or who have always been a part of the establishment. And I think I'm one of those people. I don't think I'm going to sway my support one way or the other just based off of the money aspect of things, because you find that people are swayed because of the money, or you find that people are swayed because of the corporations that are backing them. And I think when we find people who are true to their word, going to commit themselves to helping to change the things that are necessary for our community, which I think is the time is now. The time is definitely now, and we're seeing that over the past years. When you find that,
Keanu, I don't mean to cut you off. That's a good. you had a good one there. You was like a preacher there that was in his zone, in his element. We appreciate that answer. And I know it was a loaded question, but we appreciate that. What I want to do now, we have one more. We have the Caucus of African American Leaders, the convener himself, Mr. Carl Snowden. At this particular time, if you have a question that you want,
I'm actually going to defer to Dee Goodwin and give her the opportunity to ask a question.
All right. Okay, Miss D, I have you unmuted.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. My question is directed to Dejah Williams, and that is, why do you believe that you are the best candidate running for the office of delegate in District 2?
Thank you, Ms. D. It's wonderful to see you. Well, the reason why I would like to go and feel that I am, the reason why I would like to go be chosen as a delegate to the National Convention is, one, I've been really active in Democratic politics in Anne Arundel County since I graduated from college. I graduated from college in 2017, December of 2017, and then immediately in January 2018, I was interning for the Maryland Democratic State Party, and then working in several elections within Anne Arundel County for Democrats up and down the county. So the county executive, Stuart Pittman, and definitely for the delegates and county council people up here in the northern and northwestern part. So Allison Pickard, Councilwoman Sarah Lacey, and the D32 team, which includes Delegate Rogers, Delegate Mark Chang, and Delegate J. Sandy Bartlett, and the Senator Pamela Bidle. And so I definitely feel that my track record in work for and on behalf of people of color in democratic spaces has been consistent. As one of the 5 Black women who worked in the county executive's office for the first year of his administration, I definitely tried my best and made it my mission to champion the voices of Black people who were living in Annapolis, my constituents who called me in the western part of the county as well, because I was in charge of Districts 1 and 2 during that time. I worked for the county executive. And for me, my biggest platform for Black people, especially in democratic politics, is economics. I do believe that Black people in America are, in terms of money, worth well over $6 billion. We are some of the highest, everything that we buy, people market to us because we know that our dollar has meaning. They know that our dollar has meaning. I often think that Blacks often undervalue their dollar in America, and that's one of my things is to make sure that the wealth doesn't always stay at the top, but is dispersed through the middle class and what we would call the lower class for socioeconomics. And I think that for me, my support went to Elizabeth Warren because she acknowledged that the Black dollar was important in America and we hadn't gotten our fair share. And I definitely feel that now, as Blacks are more educated on stocks and bonds, Roth IRAs, which are super important into expanding Black wealth. Now I definitely feel that legacy is reversed. You often see Black children buying their parents their first home instead of the other way around. And that's something that is super important to me, that in the next generation, that my generation is passing down wealth and property down the line to our children and our grandchildren. And that is something that I'm super consistent on. And that's why if you choose for me to go for the District 2 delegate to the National Convention, these are things that I'm championing on, that there is equity in economics and education and housing for Black people specifically.
Thank you, Dejah. Awesome. Listen, I just want to give a round of applause to all of our candidates. They did a great job. I believe we have some outstanding Black candidates here in Anne Arundel County. We are really. We wanted to get some closing statements, but we have run out of time. We are right over the 3 o'clock mark, and we want to make sure we stay within that element. But before we go, I want to hear from our convener, Mr. Snowden, and then followed by him, we're going to have a closing statement by my apostle, Apostle Larry Lee Thomas Sr. So, Carl, if you would like to share a closing statement, and then we'll have Apostle Thomas follow right by you.
And one of the things I want to emphasize to all of you, first of all, congratulations on running. Public service is the highest form, I think, of service you can do. But we need you. We need you. We need your ideas. We need your energy. We need your views. This coming Saturday, 1 week from the day, all the organizations have convened a historic, never before to have happened, town hall meeting that will involve African American leaders. We want to invite each of you who are on the panel to be part of that discussion. It's a closed discussion. It will only involve African American leaders in the religious community, elected officials, business people, activists. We're going to come together and we're going to spend several hours having a dialogue among ourselves on developing an agenda for the next 3 years. I conclude my remarks by asking 3 questions that when you ask people around the country, you're surprised that many leaders who are African American don't know the answer to. If you go to most cities, most counties, and you ask them, in the county or the city you represent, how many multimillionaires exist in Baltimore City, Prince George's County, Chicago, Detroit? You'd be surprised to learn that many African American leaders don't know the answer to that question. Second question is, if you ask them how many elected officials who happen to be African American exist in their jurisdiction, they don't know. And the third and final question, when you ask, given the problems that Black people have, jogger getting shot and killed, a Black woman being murdered at her home, a sense of an emergency, why have not African American people come together to talk about how we're going to respond to the social ills of our community? Next Saturday in Anne Arundel County, using this medium, we're going to invite every African American leader to be part of a discussion to develop that agenda. And we invite each of you who've been invited today to be part of that discussion. If you're interested, please let Bishop Palmer know. You'll get a special invitation. And again, it is by invitation only. Thank you, Bishop.
Thank you, Carl. Awesome. And now we're going to have Apostle Larry Lee Thomas Sr.
Grace and peace to all that is on this wonderful conversation. I could say this is a great day to have this conversation because you only have a few more days before someone is going to mail in their ballot. And hopefully those 100,000 people that is watching today see that you as one of those whom they will choose. But if you don't get to be the choice on the ballot, you're my choice for today. So I'm praying that as you go to those that were going to the polls that had an opportunity to hear, and thank all of the conveners, along with the United Black Clergy, NAACP, the caucus, CAST, I'm going to miss somebody, Connect Docs, and the Deltas, I believe. All of those wonderful organizations for just stepping in to let you know as a candidate, we do care about your campaign. And it was our prayer that we had an opportunity to get to know who you were and who you are. And I believe for those of us even, see, most of the time folks will get to know you in what you call a few moments. It don't take a long time to have to get to know you. And I believe that many had an opportunity to get to know you. So I'm just encouraging us to go to the polls, make your calling, as they say, an election sure, and vote for one of these wonderful candidates whom we have heard from on today. And again, we want to thank everyone. And now my prayer is this, that God will bless you, that the Lord will keep you, that his countenance will be able to shine upon you, and that you will be strengthened in all that you are trying to accomplish. And as a verse of scripture will say, be not weary in your well-doing, for you shall reap if you faint not. This is not your season to give up, but this is your season to say, I am the one. And I pray that because you make that declaration that you are the one, that you will see miracles, signs, and wonder. Things will happen for you and your campaign. And this is the season we call of the turnaround. This is also a season of recovery. People are not used to voting by mail and all of those wonderful things. But it's our prayer that the mailman don't hold up your ballots. It's our prayer that once they get to the appointed people, that they would do justice and do that which is right. So as we will say, we'll see you next week, because we want to have a good conversation next week. We pray that you will be strengthened in all that you do. And thank you for being part of this conversation. Amen and amen.
Amen. Amen. Thank you, Apostle Larry Lee Thomas. Well said. Brother Carl Snowden, well said. We appreciate all of the organizations who are here representing today. And let me just enumerate. We have our candidates. We have the Honorable Judge Elizabeth Morris, Delegate Mike Rogers, Mr. Keanu Smith Brown, Mr. Devon Tucker, Mr. Raleigh Turnage, and the lovely Miss Dejah Williams. And also who was not with us was Congressman Anthony Brown and Sheila Bryant. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for sharing with us today and expanding that to our Facebook community, our YouTube community. And I believe that we're going to have a wonderful vote, whether it's turning in the ballots or see you at the polls. This is still souls to the polls right here for us. And we're looking and expecting to meet you with for our great dialogue again on next Saturday. Please drop me an email or a text, and so that we can get you on that RSVP for our powerful dialogue on next Saturday. And until then, again, this was Black Candidates Virtual Forum. I'm Bishop Antonio Palmer, and we are signing out. God bless you.
Community.
Praise the Lord. Everybody. Hi, everybody. Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye,
All
Roger.
right. We'll see you guys later.